Right now, as you're looking at this screen, you are not actually seeing the real world. That sounds absurd, right? Your eyes are open, light is pouring in, the image looks perfectly clear. But here's the truth. What you call seeing is actually a picture your brain paints for you, built from scattered, incomplete, and sometimes inaccurate fragments of information. You're not observing the world. You're living inside a simulation, one your own brain constructed. And here's the unsettling part. You would never notice this unless someone pointed it out to you. So here's the big question. If what you see isn't the real world, then what actually is real? And why would a brain that evolved over millions of years, one that's supposedly so sophisticated, choose to deceive its own owner? The answer is going to change the way you look at, quite literally, every moment you've ever experienced. Let's start with something simple, the blind spot in your eye. At the back of each eye, there's a spot where the optic nerve passes through the retina to connect to the brain. Right at that exact point, there are no light-sensing cells at all, which means there's a real gap in your vision right now as you read this. But do you see that gap? No. Why not? Because your brain automatically fills it in based on what surrounds it, like Photoshop automatically patching a deleted section of an image. It guesses, and it guesses well enough that you never suspect a thing. And this is just the beginning. There's an even more fundamental problem: speed. Light hits your eyes. The signal travels through your nerves. Your brain processes it, and only then does the experience of seeing get created. That entire process takes time, even if it's a very short amount. In other words, what you're seeing right now is actually an image of a moment that has already passed. You're always living slightly behind the present. You just never feel that delay because your brain never shows you the raw data. It only hands you the final, smoothed-out edit. Researchers studying cognition call this a form of continuous prediction. The brain doesn't just record the world. It constantly predicts what the world will look like next, then compares that prediction against incoming signals to correct itself. You don't see reality. You see your brain's best guess at reality. Now here's something that will make you question everything. Light itself has no color. Light is just electromagnetic waves at different wavelengths. Red doesn't exist out there in physical space. What we call color, the sensation of red, blue, yellow, is something created entirely inside your brain as a way of encoding and distinguishing between different wavelengths of light. It's an internal tool, not a property of the world itself. And because every brain is slightly different, many scientists suspect that what you call red might not be exactly the same experience as what the person next to you calls red, even though you're both looking at the same object and using the same word. This is still an open question in cognitive science, without a final answer, but it shows something important. Color is a product of the brain, not of the world. So why would the brain work this way? Why wouldn't something this intelligent just record the world accurately? The answer comes down to a very practical pressure: survival. The world around you contains an overwhelming amount of information, far too much to process in real time. If your ancestors had to analyze every single detail, every photon of light, before reacting to a strange sound in the bushes, they would have been too slow to escape a predator. So the brain evolved differently. Instead of processing everything, it learned to guess fast and guess well enough. It builds a simplified model of the world, good enough to help you avoid danger, find food, recognize familiar faces, while skipping almost everything else. In other words, your brain wasn't built to show you the truth. It was built to help you survive. And those two goals aren't always the same thing. And here's the twist that flips everything you just heard. You might be thinking, so my brain is deceiving me. That sounds like a flaw that needs fixing. But the truth is the exact opposite. If your brain tried to represent the world with total, unfiltered accuracy, no shortcuts, no predictions, no filling in gaps, you would be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information, react far too slowly, and struggle to make real-time decisions at all. What you might call a hallucination that your brain creates isn't a system failure. It's actually the very reason you're able to live, move, react, and function in a world that's too complex to fully comprehend. In other words, you don't live inside a hallucination because your brain is broken. You live because of that hallucination. Raw, unfiltered reality, with nothing edited or simplified, might actually be something you couldn't function in at all, rather than the gift you might assume it would be. And this goes deeper than just vision. The feeling of having a single, continuous self, the sense that you're one person, unbroken from morning to night. Many cognitive researchers believe this, too, is a kind of model the brain constructs in order to create a sense of stability, rather than something that reflects a fixed self sitting somewhere inside your head. Even your sense of time flowing smoothly, one second gliding into the next, is largely a product of how your brain organizes information after the fact, not a raw, unmediated experience of reality itself. You're not just seeing a reconstructed version of the world. You are living your entire human experience inside a model your brain is constantly building, editing, and updating, millisecond by millisecond. So what does this actually mean for your everyday life? Next time you argue with someone because the two of you saw the exact same thing completely differently, maybe it's not because one of you is lying or being difficult. Maybe it's simply that two brains built two slightly different simulations from the same raw data. Next time you feel completely certain about a memory, a color you saw, or a feeling you experienced, remember that most of what you call reality has already passed through many layers of editing before it ever reached your conscious awareness. That doesn't mean you can't trust your senses in everyday life. Your brain, imperfect as it is still remarkably good at helping you get through the world. But it does leave you with something worth sitting with. If everything you've ever seen, felt, and believed to be real is actually just the best reconstruction your brain could manage, then who does the reality you're living inside actually belong to? What do you think? If you knew that every experience you've ever had was already edited before it reached you, would you look at your own memories and emotions any differently? Leave your thoughts in the comments.